Hello and welcome to Ask GMBN Tech. This is the show where we answer your questions, which you can put in the comments below for us to check out using the hashtag Ask GMBN Tech. So we've been looking at those and we've got a whole load to answer for you today. So let's get into it. First question today is from Mario Pejovic. He basically wants to upgrade his braking power on his hardtail. He's got some Shimano brakes and he's asking, is it better to have high level brakes, bigger rotors or new different pads?
Okay.
My opinion on this, I think, would always just be start off with bigger rotors. For that, it's just a surefire mechanical advantage. There's no argument about it. They just do give more braking power, in my opinion, and maybe making sure brakes are well set up, properly bled. That can make a massive difference, especially for heat dissipation as well as mechanical advantage in the rotors. So for longer descents, it's going to dissipate more heat. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, bigger rotors help a lot. Obviously, I think you've touched on like bleeding the brakes is a really good one because the mechanical system's going to work. I think you've done a video recently on checking that your pistons are lined up and that you've lubricated them. So doing all of those, switching to big rotors. If you're switching rotors as well, I'd always vote for sintered pads as well. They give a slightly different lever feel. Okay, in really, really hot weather, you can have more heat issues potentially with a metal or sintered pad, but in general, they provide a better braking, especially in the wet and in the mud that we're assuming that he's heading into because we're coming into winter. So yeah, I vote for sintered pads too.
Cool, so there we go. Bigger rotors, maybe pads as well. See how you get on with that.
Okay, now we've got another question. This one is from Non-Legit Nation 2, and he asks, Ask GMBN Tech, what are your thoughts on drilling holes into an aluminium frame? So he's got quite specific parameters. He's got a budget Schwinn bike, and he's fitting some sleeveless cables too. So far he's he's fitted 8 of these mounts, and each one of these has 2 holes for each mount. And he's wondering if drilling these holes, which are 1/8 of an inch, so it's about 3 mil, is that going to cause problems in his aluminium frame? What are your thoughts?
Ooh. My thoughts with aluminium is always to err on the side of caution with drilling, to be honest, because when you introduce those holes, you get these stress concentrations in the frame where it kind of focuses the force a little bit more, and it is going to make it crack more easily. And I think with aluminium, the way that it fails compared to steel, where it might gradually develop, with aluminium it can be a lot more sudden, catastrophic.
Yeah.
I guess it is a bit of a grey area. Like, that's what I think, especially if you're drilling 16 not insignificant sized holes, 3 mil. I get that's probably to fit your rivets for your sleeve mounts, but it's like
it's quite a few.
It's quite a few holes. Maybe they're in a nice perforated line along the tube.
So I think what we're saying is probably avoid.
Yeah, steel maybe a little bit more workable, although that does raise the issue of letting moisture in for rust. So you have to be careful with how you sleeve whatever you're putting in the hole, how you block it up with silicone or something. Aluminium, it probably is easier to drill than steel because it's a little bit softer, so you can get away with a less specific drill bit. Is that something you'd agree with? I
mean, yeah, I think I've drilled, I guess it's a warranty thing. It's going to void your warranty. Brands don't like people drilling holes. I guess it also depends where you're drilling a hole. If you're drilling it in a high stress area, sort of like behind the head tube or anywhere around the head tube really, or kind of around sort of where the seat clamp is, those are high load areas, which I've seen fail on aluminium frames that have, been within warranty. So maybe drilling holes there is a really bad idea. Yeah. In general, I think it's a tricky one. Maybe drilling a hole in a bottom bracket is okay in the middle of it because it's slightly less stress. Either way, if you take your drill to a frame, it's probably going to void your warranty. So not high on those recommends.
I guess it's being circumspect about your use as well. Yeah. And I can't say, I'm not going to recommend it on a shopping bike or something, but maybe that's slightly different to a bike you're riding downhill on, so it's kind of using judicious care and caution.
Very true. Okay.
Yeah. Next question today is from Rossi Shep Caliber. He says, the mechanic Owen, great addition to the tech show. I agree. Thank you, Owen, for joining today. Any thoughts on flexi chainstays? Are they reliable? Have you got any horror stories?
I mean, well, they go back, I think, like to the 1800s. There were bikes with flex chainstays, so they've been around a while. Yeah. I would say most recent history, Ibis did a really, really cool bike called the Ripley. Ripley, believe it or not. It was a flex stay bike. And actually, I'm getting the chronology wrong here. So they did the Ripley, which was this soft tail.
Right.
titanium bike. They did an aluminium version as well. But the designer of that bike, a guy called John Castellano, I hope I'm not butchering his name, made a really seminal bike called the Ibis Bow Tie.
Okay.
And we've got a new version of the Castellano, which again is titanium, and again is pivotless. So opposed to just having a small flex pivot stay, say like the new Oith or Oise, where instead of having a horse link or a pivot just above the sort of drop out on the back of the bike, it's using like a live link. So the whole of that seat stay, it sort of flexes. So opposed to having one pinch point, the whole section can flex. So yeah, I think it proves that you can make it in metal, and this whole, I think it's about a 5-inch travel bike, moves without any pivot.
Wow, okay.
So if it's really well designed, and with FEA technology and CAD design and really smart engineers, that's who we can thank. If it's designed well and you're using it within the right remit, you know, if you take a cross-country bike to a downhill track, potentially that's not going to end well.
But you could apply that to any.
I mean, you could. You know, but with these living links, I think they're good.
Yeah, I certainly haven't run into any problems specifically because of
that's
flex
good.
days.
And also it's less maintenance. It's one less thing that you need to have a pivot on. It's one less thing that has to be bolted through the bike. And I think that's why one of the reasons why Orbea used it is that it saves quite a lot of grams from the back end of the bike, because it means you don't have to have an actual fixed pivot. You can have this living pivot that moves and is lighter.
And I guess that as well, it just reduces a lot of the like joins and the tech within the frame and the kind of the sort of hinge effect you can have around a tube into a pivot and all that stuff. It just moves the force, spreads it out across the whole rear end. So I guess we're saying this isn't something new. It's been around for years. Some brands have done it really effectively, and we personally haven't encountered any disasters.
Exactly, yeah, good stuff. We've got a question here from Jacob Brixey. How do you properly dispose of old or broken hydraulic levers and calipers? He's saying that he knows that we shouldn't put these hydraulic lines in the garbage or in the bin, as we call them here, but he's pretty sure that that's where they end up in most cases. So is there a proper handling and disposal for these items, or do we just chuck them in the bin and hope? What's the best practice?
It's funny you say best practice. I feel like the answer is the best practice is the best practice for where you live, like how you would dispose of hazardous waste, because with dot fluid and mineral oil, which are different types of brake fluids you get in bike brakes, they are toxic and subject to specific regulations and controls of disposal. So for example, in the UK, for brake fluid, you can take up to 5 litres to your household recycling centres in sealed containers and they'll dispose of it. Mineral oil, I think, is the same, and it would be probably more likely to be able to get rid of it at auto oil disposal centres as well. So if you can separate the two, if you have old brake systems and you can drain the fluid out into sealed containers, that leaves you with the brake parts. What can you do about those?
Well, assuming you're able to clean them and dry them, I feel like the hoses would probably have to go to your hazardous waste as well, because they'll be slightly contaminated. But if you're able to clean them really well, and obviously do that with gloves and eyewear, and sort of in a good environment where it's not going to leak out into the environment, you should just be able to recycle the metal bits, I would say, at your local recycling centre as well.
Really?
It's regular metal bits, so
And why we're taking care with this is it's not just noxious chemicals that we want to avoid getting out into the natural environment, but actually they will harm people as well. Skin, it's actually not very nice stuff, brake fluid. If you can look up the regulations in your local area, and they should have a specific route for that because it's a known thing. It's the same for cars, so there will be something to take care of it. The next question is from Bod Johnson, who says, why do a lot of bikes these days have a bend in the lower section of the down tube, so near where it's contacting the bottom bracket junction? They like straight down tubes, and they want to know what's the reason. What's the reason, Owen?
Well, we could hypothesise our thoughts, but we went straight to the source and went to Ali Beckett of Redburn Design. So he's a design engineer who's worked with Nukeproof in the past, but he works with Privateer, Fussell, Forbidden Bikes, and we asked him about it. So I'll kind of read what his answer is. So he can't speak on behalf of all engineers and designers, but from his experience and with his designs, it's all about that kink in the front triangle. Is about making space for suspension and making space for maybe a bottle or maybe tools. In some scenarios, having that kink in the lower down tube can mean that you can use the same down tube across multiple sizes. So if you think that as a frame designer is growing a frame, they need to use some tube shapes and some tube sections that are going to be the same throughout. So yeah, it would appear with an aluminium frame they can do that with that kink. From him, he's saying it's definitely not a conscious design decision to improve the weld area. It's just a necessary evil, which lots of designers, try to make look pretty, but it's a byproduct of literally making the package of that front triangle for the suspension, for your bottle to fit in there, which we all need a bottle in there. So that's why.
It's amazing that it seems like such a massive structural part of the bike, and it could be just for a bottle, but I guess that is incredibly important, so there we go.
Hey, my thirst is important.
That is all we've got time for today, I'm afraid. So thank you very much for submitting those questions. Keep them coming in, #Ask GMBN Tech. We'll be pulling some more of those out next time. So see you then.